F1 fans? Welcome back to the F1 Masters podcast brought to you by AUBG Daily. As usual, you're with myself, Vasco, and Harry. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the 2025 Formula One rookies and how we believe they're going to perform. There's a large rookie class, I would say, for next year. So it's definitely interesting to see how they're going to do. So to begin, we're going to talk about Jack Doohan, who signed for Alpine, and he actually made his debut at Abu Dhabi, and he has already replaced Esteban Ocon at the team. So yeah, what do you guys think about Jack Doohan to start off?
Well, to start, we can say that his first race wasn't the most successful one. He was last in qualifying, he was last in the race, I think, even though he finished. We didn't see anything impressive, but I think this is only for one race with car that he's not totally familiar with, so I don't think we can judge by that. But with his youth career and the decision from Alpine to give him that place, I think we can expect some interesting things for him. But when we talk about Alpine, they're not really impressive, and I think the next season they're not going to have as many lucky races as they had during this season. They're not going to be, in my opinion, any more Brazils, let's say. And that is why I think that Doohan is not going to be that impressive, mainly because of the team that he's in, and also the competition that he has is from older driver with more experience in the team, who is French, and I think that Pierre Gasly is going to beat him throughout the next season, and there is going to be a lot of points separating them, and that is why I think, at least for 2025, I think his contract is only for 2025.
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah, I think that I don't think there is any official information, but like media reports state that his contract is only for 2025. So that is why I don't think that Jack Doohan is going to have like the most successful spell with Alpine.
I think that out of all of the rookies, they're the least expectations for Jack Doohan, because I think that the other drivers have been more impressive in their junior careers. Like, they have achieved a lot in Formula 2, Formula 3, and he doesn't stand out that much, even though he comes from we can say, racing family. His father is a MotoGP champion. I think he's not going to impress that much. As Vasco already said, he has a really experienced teammate who is probably going to outperform him, certainly. And let's see, maybe if he doesn't prove himself, he will lose his seat in Alpine. But I mean, they did it because he's their junior driver, even though there were some rumors that Flavio Briatore said that he preferred Franco Colapinto over Jack Doohan. Let's see, I think I don't have great expectations for the Australian.
I've never really been interested in Jack Doohan as a driving prospect. He's had an okay junior career. I mean, he was Alpine's reserve driver the entire 2024. 2023, he was in F2. He finished third in the standings, actually ahead of Ollie Behrman, for example. He finished lower. Isaac Hadjar, who are also going to be on the grid. He only finished behind Teo Porcher, who somehow did not get any seat in F1, unfortunately. And also Frederick Vesti. Jack Doohan is okay. I didn't have any expectations for him for Abu Dhabi. It was his first time in the car. I didn't really expect him to get out of Q1, to get into the points, anything like that. It was pretty much just a learning process for him. But as far as next season, Pierre Gasly is a tough teammate as a rookie, and I think that he's gonna struggle. And not only struggle, I think he'll get dominated by Pierre Gasly. I think Pierre Gasly will get, I believe, at least maybe 90% of Alpine's points next season. Jack Doohan, he's going to have a tough ask, but I would say it would be a success for him if he manages to outqualify Gasly a few times and sneak it into the points a few times. And I think that'll be a commendable rookie season for Jack Doohan.
Well, I think that Alpine are not really going for anything in 2025. They're probably going to be more focused on 2026 onwards, and that is why I think Doohan is just that one driver who is given a chance. But I think in 2026, if they feel like they have some potential in the car, they are definitely going to opt for somebody else. But we'll see. We can be left like really surprised from Duan, and he can turn out to be a successful story. But for now, all the perspectives are telling us that there are going to be a lot of tough periods for him at Alpine. We can move to the US-based team, Haas, and their new driver who we saw in a couple of races throughout this season. And we saw actually a couple of impressive drives through him when he had to step into the Ferrari. He drove it, and I think it looked pretty well for Oli Berman. What we're going to see from him in the next year?
Yeah, Ollie Behrman going to be driving for Haas. Esteban Ocon is his teammate. I believe also another tough teammate, in my opinion. Actually, Esteban Ocon did manage to beat Pierre Gasly in the qualifying head-to-head this year, which I think is overlooked. Ollie Behrman, he had good races when he stepped in. And that Ferrari on such a demanding track like Saudi Arabia, his first race, and he only had one practice session because Carlos Sainz got sick the day before. So he was very impressive. He got P7 in that race. And when we thought that would be the only race we would see him for the rest of the season, well, that's not what happened. He actually managed to drive 2 more races. He drove in Azerbaijan because of Kevin Magnussen's suspension, and he got P10 in that race. As far as I remember, Haas actually, I think, could have done better in that race, but he still managed to score a point. And he was also in Sao Paulo for Kevin Magnussen once again, who got sick that weekend and finished P12. He had a pretty miserable race in Sao Paulo, but conditions were very tricky, and that was actually really the first bad race I think I saw from him. My concerns with Ollie Behrman is that in F2, he was pretty bad this year. I mean, he got 3 wins, which, I mean, like, impressive, but he finished 12th in the standings. I mean, for a guy that drove a Ferrari in the same season, I mean, this is not someone that even seems like a prospect. And I don't even know how he even collected the license points to get a super license, because P12 in the F2 championships, I don't even know how many points that gets you for a super license.
But
yeah,
the previous season he was P6.
He was P6, but yeah, it's still
I think like to gather enough super license points, you should be in the top 6 in Formula 2. I think that there is something like that in order for you to get. It was either P6 or P8. I think that is enough for you to collect enough super license points.
They collected it's on a 3-year basis as well, so Formula 3 points also count potentially. So, but I mean, generally he's been nowhere in F2, and that's been kind of disappointing. And it's a trend with, I would say, another one of the rookies that we'll get onto later on this list, who seem like they are the best prospects, but in F2 they are nowhere. And I'm worried about Ollie Behrman. I think he'll be inconsistent. He'll have some good races for sure, and I think he'll challenge Esteban Ocon to a degree. But yeah, I think there will be a lack of consistency there. But I think that Haas gives him potential to put out some impressive performances.
Well, I'm not that sure, especially the Haas part, because their car, we know that it is not the easiest to drive, and this season they had 2 really experienced Formula 1 drivers, and even they at some moments had problems. But my point is that I'm not sure that whether Haas are going to have the same potential in the car as they had this year, and also with 2 drivers who are, let's say, prone to some crashes, and also not really, at least for Esteban Ocon, he had a trend of not really getting along with his teammates, and also, as we saw a lot actually of disappointing drives from Ocon during this season. I think that this is not going to be such a great environment for Ollie Behrman. I personally like him, especially that Ferrari race. I was impressed from a guy that finished P6 last season in Formula 2 to manage to jump into that Ferrari and perform. And I think that the stint with Haas is not going to be that long. And I think he has a multi-year contract that ensures him place for at least 2 years. And that is why I think that we're going to see 2 alright seasons for him, but I don't personally see him as a very long-term guy for Haas.
Well, we have to consider that he's a Ferrari Academy driver, and probably Ferrari are aiming that he gathers experience in Haas and he impresses, and then potentially, like after Lewis Hamilton retires, maybe he is the guy to be chosen alongside Charles Leclerc. But this really depends on how he performs. As already said, he hasn't been like very impressive this year, so there will be like expectations to improve this year, next year, and if he doesn't, I mean, it's gonna be tough. So
I think Haas post Günther Steiner, I think the environment has really gotten much better there, and I think that I mean Ocon at this point is very experienced, and I think he'll be more calm, and this is really the first time where he is the more experienced teammate, because usually he has been the young up and coming driver against like a more experienced teammate, or at least someone that has similar experience, like Pierre Gasly, for example. So I think this could also be a chance for Esteban Ocon to really find turn a new leaf, if I could say it like that. But yeah, anything else about Ollie Behrman?
Well, it's just that when I see this Haas lineup, nothing in me is like, oh yeah, this is going to work. This is going to be like super great. I think that a car that is not so fast with two, let's say, around average pilots, it's just nothing that would encourage me that there is going to be something special about Ollie Behrman in Haas. But we can move on to, in my opinion, probably the most interesting rookie of them all. But again, we are going to decide that who that is going to be. But the reigning F2 champion, Gabriel Bortoleto, who is going to a not so impressive Kick Sauber team in the next season.
Yeah, it's a shame. Like I would say the best driver got the worst car, but by the time he really became a contender for a seat, that was pretty much the only one left. So he had no choice. I mean, he was a McLaren junior, but McLaren are never dropping either one of their drivers, so he had to settle for something. I'm glad he found an F1 seat at the end of the day. But yeah, Bortoleto, incredible in F2. I specifically remember in Monza how he started at the back of the grid, 22nd, and won the race. And yeah, won the championship in his first year in F2. And he won the F3 championship in his first year as well. Last person to do this was Oscar Piastri, and I think he's turning out to be a pretty good driver. So yeah, Bortoleto, really good, and honestly a bright hope for Brazil, who really had a lack of drivers since Felipe Massa. So it's good to see another driver there representing and giving them hope. But yeah, that Sauber is going to be terrible. But Nico Hülkenberg, strong midfield driver, but I think is a good benchmark for him. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see him being like on the same level as Nico Hülkenberg in his first season. I just hope that car gives him an opportunity to show what he's capable of, because what he did in F2 was incredible.
he is probably, as like you said, maybe the best prospect. He's F2 champion, so there is a lot of hype around him, and I can see why. Maybe he can also use Hülkenberg as a kind of his mentor to like support him and show him the, let's say, right path into Formula One. And I have like really big expectations for this guy, because he has proved to be like when he has the car, he is dominating. He is just like always up there. So it's going to be really, really interesting. But I just hope as well that Sauber provide him with a better car than the one they had this year.
Well, I'm pretty impressed from his F3 and F2 stints. And in my opinion, the car that he's in right now actually puts him in a great position, because the expectations are really low, and it is only for a year actually, because from 2026 the team would be rebranded and they have like a solid expectation of what is going to happen. But this is post 2026, and for 2025 all the conditions are actually there for Bortoleto. He's not going to have huge pressure on his shoulders, but he would be given time and opportunities to present the best of himself, to get used to the car, and to be absolutely ready for 2026 and the big opportunity that he's going to take there with Audi. And for Nico Hülkenberg, I think he's like a really great mentor, and he's a guy that Bortoleto can look forward to. So I have huge expectations for him for his overall F1 career, and even though I don't expect something mesmerizing from him in 2025, I think that would be a great first step in Formula 1 for a guy who surely has the potential to be something special.
Yeah, I think that actually, depending on obviously how he performs, well, let's say he beats Nico Hulkenberg in his first season and continues performing really well, I could see him being the guy that succeeds Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari after he eventually retires. I think it's a real possibility. But yeah, moving on to our next prospect, who I would say before this season was the most hyped up prospect since Max Verstappen. That is Kimi Antonelli, who is going to drive in the biggest team out of all the rookies. He's going to drive at Mercedes, which is an incredible opportunity for him. But his F2 season was kind of bland. It wasn't really that impressive. I think many people thought he was going to dominate the championship, and he finished P6 and was never in the championship fight. And in fact, I believe like until like the last couple of rounds, he was behind Franco Colapinto in the standings, who wasn't even racing anymore in the championship. So I was a bit disappointed by Antonelli in F2, and obviously his Monza practice session was another disappointment, because he crashed on his first flying lap in the Mercedes. Are you guys concerned at all for Antonelli and the pressure he's going to face at Mercedes?
Yeah, I think that is one of the problems because he's a guy born in 2006. He just turned 18, and which is absolutely impressive in my opinion to be in F1 in one of the biggest teams at that age, but with all the expectations and all the pressure that they put on his shoulders in the past actually 1-2 years, and when the saga with Lewis Hamilton turned out to be like him going to Ferrari and Mercedes not actually having somebody in their academy or as a reserve driver that could be the replacement that was the already made replacement, like they forced Kimi to be that guy, and I think he's going to be great in the future for sure. He's going to stay in F1. He's going to be one of the cover faces of the sport for the next 10-15 years. But this season is going to be really decisive for his future, because this is the biggest stage. Even though if you haven't really performed the previous season in F2, if you perform right now, then you're going to secure that place, and you're going to secure that you're going to be talked about, and you're going to be in the eyes of the public. And that is why I'm not absolutely sure whether he's going to be great or not in his first season, but in my opinion the most important thing for him would be to stay calm, to probably follow George Russell as a guide to what is going to be the environment in Mercedes. And after that, if they decide to stick with him in the future, and he can grab that opportunity and perform miracles.
Yes, he is a very young driver who is going to have a lot of pressure, just like Max Verstappen when he entered in 2015. Like, there were discussions that Kimi Antonelli is too young for this seat. I can understand why, I can see why, but still, I think that it is important that he is given a chance, and 2025 will be a stepping stone. He will have to learn a lot. He's 18 years old. But after that, as Vasco said, this is like one of the guys for the future of F1. So I know that next year is going to be tough, but after that, I can expect like huge success from Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, and I also believe that since he's going to be in a big team, he will be driving wheel to wheel with the best of the best drivers in F1, which I think will really help his development. Just competing against the top guys rather than fighting in the midfield. George Russell, very, very good teammate, I think, to have. And if he performs on a comparable level, I think that is successful enough. I mean, Oscar Piastri, in his rookie season, I would say that's kind of the season that I would hope for Kimi Antonelli. Similar to Oscar Piastri, who, even though he wasn't close to Lando Norris in the standings in his rookie season, he had some really great performances and was stepping up on some big occasions.
I just hope he doesn't crack under pressure, because if he performs great actually in the first, let's say, 4, 5, 6 races of the season, after that it would be gradually become easier for him and he would become to feel more comfortable. So that is why I don't think he needs any super rapid moves or any risky decisions. He needs to get adapted well to this car, and after that, if he manages to become more confident in F1, in Mercedes, then he would become better for like a really, really short period of time.
Okay, so now we can move on to the last rookie, and that is Isaac Hadjar in the RB seat. Isaac Hadjar, he lost the F2 championship on the last race of the season after his car stalled on the grid, actually. Very disappointing. What do you guys think about him? I feel like he's not really been talked about a lot, and he really got into this conversation for an RB seat towards like the last month of the season. Runner-up in F2. Pretty good season. He actually led the championship for at least half of the season. What are you guys' thoughts on him, and do you think he could do well in that RB where there's a lot of pressure to perform?
I think he's an underrated driver. Like, as you said, he was a championship leader, so I don't know why just people didn't notice him, or I don't know, they were just focused on others. But yeah, the thing is that he's a part of the Red Bull family, and as we all know, the pressure is immense. Like, you have to deliver instantly, otherwise you're out. Helmut Marko is gonna tell you you're out.
Well, so far he really went under the radar, but I think there are not that huge expectations from anybody for him, because in the past few rookie drivers that were in that RB seat, they weren't really that impressive. Even Yuki Tsunoda, who is what is now 5 years, 4 years.
4 years. He's
4
going into
years.
his fifth.
Yeah, and we never actually saw him clicking the same way. Let's say even Alex Albon or Pierre Gasly before him clicked. But I think that Hadjar actually has a lot of potential, and there are going to be a lot of pressure, especially from Red Bull, on him. But we've seen in his youth career some great performances, and we have seen that he can deliver. So depending on how good that RB car is going to be, I think actually he has a really great opportunity, because if he manages to become the main guy in that team and he stays there for, let's say, season 2 or 3, and if he manages to get well adapted to the car and actually impress in that RB, who knows, because that second Red Bull seat has been like really, really volatile. Really, not anybody has managed to secure that second Red Bull place after Daniel Ricciardo. So there is always an opportunity there to become part of one of the biggest teams. I'm not sure how he's going to perform. Like, he's the most unknown from all the rookies, in my opinion. But definitely it is going to be interesting, because if he's great, then he's a potential for the Red Bull future.
I guess before we round out this episode, one last question. Just answer just with the name. Who do you think will be the best performing rookie?
Gabriel Bortoleto.
Well, in my opinion, I think, as Harry said, probably Bortoleto.
I think it'll be Kimi Antonelli.
Something really important. We're not talking here points-wise, but we're talking about performance-wise. I think it would be Bortoleto, even if the car is on the same level and he manages to grab like a few outings in Q2 and Q3, and if he manages to secure like 3, 4, 5 points, then it is going to be considered a great season for him. For Kimi to be considered a great season, it won't be enough to just be alright in that car. He will have to push George Russell if he wants to be considered like super successful season, in my opinion.
I think if he gets some podiums, it'll be quite successful season, actually. So, and I expect that from him. I think he will have the pace, and I don't think Bortoleto will have the car to be able to show his abilities. That's just my concern.
Well, everything's dependent on how actually all the teams are going to look like in the next season, but this is a totally different conversation that we'll cover in the future before, for sure, the start of the next F1 season. So for now, I think we can conclude This is all for today from us, guys. We're looking forward to the next episode. Till then, like, subscribe, and follow us and AUBG Daily on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for more of our content. Thank you, and remember,
If you no longer go for a gap that exists,
You're no longer a racing driver.